Hi, my name is Gopinda. My critical autoethnography is about a moment that shaped how I understand race and identity. This moment happened when I moved from India to LA in third grade. At that age, I didn't fully understand race or identity yet. I was mostly focused on adjusting to a new country and a new school. But as I grew older, I began to realize that this experience helped shape how I see stereotypes, representation, and the way people feel when they enter a new environment where they are different from everyone else. When my family moved from India to the US, everything felt new. The culture, the school system, and even everyday conversations were different from what they used to be. In India, I was surrounded by people who shared a similar background, culture, and language. But when I came to US, that suddenly changed. As a third grader, I mostly felt nervous and unsure about how I would fit in. I was trying to understand the new environment while also figuring out how people saw me. I remember my first day of school pretty clearly. Walking into the classroom felt intimidating because I didn't know anyone there. Everyone else seemed comfortable and already a part of the environment, while I felt like an outsider trying to figure out where I would belong. At that moment, I was mostly thinking about simple things like making friends and understanding what the teacher was saying. But looking back now, I can see that moment was also connected to a bigger idea about identity. Over time, I started to notice something that stood out to me. I didn't really see anyone who looked like me or shared my background. I don't remember there being any other student from India in my school, or even someone with a similar cultural experience. Being the only one like that made me feel different, and even if I didn't always have the words to describe that feeling at that time. Sometimes classmates asked questions about where I was from or noticed my accent. Most of the time, they were just curious about, and they probably didn't mean anything negative by it. But those moments still remind me that I was different from most of the other students in the classroom. Even small comments or questions can make someone feel like they stand out. Another thing I noticed over time was that people sometimes assumed I was good at math or school because I was Asian. At that time, I didn't feel negative. In fact, it sometimes felt like a compliment because people were saying something positive about my abilities. But later, as I learned more about stereotypes, I realized that these assumptions were part of a large pattern. This idea connects to something called the model minority myth. The stereotype suggests that Asian Americans are naturally hardworking, successful, and academically strong. On the surface, the stereotype might sound positive, harm, but it can actually be harmful because it puts people into a box and assumes everyone from a certain background is the same. It also ignores the diversity of experiences with Asian American communities and challenges many people. Another thing I started to notice later in my education, another thing I started to notice later in my education was what I learned in school. In history class, we talked about many important topics like European immigration and the civil rights movement. These are extremely important part of American history, but Asian American history was rarely included in the lesson we studied. Because of these experiences, I began to understand how important representation is. When students see their culture, history, and identity reflect in what they learn in school, it helps them feel included and valued. Representation also helps everyone understand the diversity of experiences that exist in society. Looking back now, moving to the US in third grade shaped how I understand race and identity today. At that time, it was just a personal experience of adjusting to a new place. But over the years, I realized that my story connects to the experience of many other Asian Americans who have also felt different or invisible in certain points of their life. My experience is only one story, but it shows how identity, stereotype, and representation can affect how people see themselves and how they feel in a community. It reminds me when creating space where different cultures and history are recognized is important for building strong and more inclusive community.